Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Dylan Stalker here, Crossroads, Idaho, via The Great Idaho Show, thegreatidahoshow.com, YouTube, everywhere else. Today, we're going to be visiting with Greg Pruett, the president of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, for what you would believe is the purpose that just transpired here in Twin Falls, Idaho. A tragedy, folks, a tragedy. And thank goodness, a tragedy that involved a person with the ability to protect not only themselves, but others, of which, Greg, you've been talking to quite a few people about this in recent days, because you are the number one, in my book, champion of Second Amendment issues here in Idaho. But I think it leads to a newer problem in the, or not a newer problem, but a newer highlight of the problem, which is the conservative divide of Idaho. That is our mission to discuss this today, because in lieu of this event, you are out trying to raise awareness, raise money, and you are out trying to continue your mission beyond constitutional carry, which, thank God, you were pretty much the number one person responsible in initiating and helping carrying that through. But a Representative Heather Scott has just come out and essentially defamed you or called you a scammer, and that to me is, Greg, that's pretty important one. So we're going to talk about that today. We have Greg Pruett of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance here talking about the divide of Idaho. But before we get there, we do have a sponsor. You'll see it right there. Old Arms of Idaho. They are your ambassadors to America's heritage, anything collectible firearms, Western militaria. Let's get right to it. Greg, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me on. And, always happy to come on your show. Sadly, I hate having to do this, at times like this when Idaho has just, suffered a horrible tragedy. Some incredible stories of bravery and everything else coming out of it, but clearly this is, not the circumstances in which we want to, have these discussions. But then, as you mentioned, we're in a whole new situation because, state lawmakers are saying things that are inaccurate and stifling the efforts that we are trying to do to help the Twin Falls community heal.
Yeah, and this is about the Twin Falls community, certainly in recent events. I mean, we also have things transpiring in Boise on the Greenbelt. We've got, murders and weird things happening. A greater reason for you to have the ability to self-protect. Again, thank goodness for our constitutional carry rights, and the work going to the SB 1298 of last year, which is the SHIELD Act that you're working on to protect somebody that self-defends. But again, we're talking about the divide of Idaho. Greg, in my last year of wondering what's happened in Idaho and getting involved and having some what I believe to be troubling experiences, there's a rift. If you ask anybody, there's a rift in Idaho, and I'm going to hopefully be able to ask you some probably pretty naive questions and have you help me describe that. But let's start right off. What is this deal with Heather? You worked with her on the Constitutional Carry Act, if I'm correct. So what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, the short version, at least initially, and if you have some follow-up questions, that's fine. Happy to answer those. The short version initially is, I've known Heather since 2015, and 2014, 2015. It's been a long time, right? Over a decade.
Sure.
She's known who I am, and not that we see eye to eye on everything, but we were both part of the conservative movement. Or I think we're still both considered part of the conservative movement, which goes to your point of this insane rift that we have right now. And, Heather's known me. She's known the background of the ISA. She knows some of the people I've worked with in the past, like the Dorr brothers. I mean, she knows the truth. And what she's doing online is, I've worked with some people that work in the 2A community. And if you go look at our 990s, our information's all public. Okay. The IRS requires that because it's a nonprofit. And we hired a company that at the time they lived in New York. They were in Iowa. And then Aaron Dorr and his family moved to New York. And so I've ran the ISA by myself almost the entire 14 years that we've been in existence. And there was this period of time for like 1.5, maybe 2 years where Aaron Dorr and them had been helping us do snail mail. Okay. Because it was just something I didn't know how to do.
It's a
Uh,
hard thing, man. You're
right.
navigating some
It's
weird
super
stuff.
tough. It's a lot. It's really complicated. And then I said, I'm like, dude, Aaron, I'm dying here, man. I was also started the Idaho Dispatch because I was trying to bring Idahoans news, some actual good news. And it was just, I mean, I was working 80 hours a week. I was killing myself. And so we hired Aaron. Again, these guys do gun rights stuff, and I have disagreements with them and strategy and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But they helped do some email work for me. They helped do some social media stuff for me. They helped run some admin stuff for me so that I could focus on the legislative stuff and focus
Sure.
on the dispatch. And we did that for a couple years, and then ultimately we wanted to go in a different direction. So we brought all of that admin work back home. Guess who's doing it all on his own again, including the snail mail, by the way. I finally figured out how to do it. I do everything on my own. And so, these two women up north, Lauren and Brandy, are like, Greg hired, and Heather jumped on this bandwagon too. She's like, Greg hired this company from out of state. Why is he sending $90,000 to New York, some company in New York? I'm like, we hired someone to help. And guess what? It was way cheaper to hire those guys to help than it would have been for me to go hire some like professional company. On top of that, what they don't ever mention or talk about is they brought in a ton of money for us at the time. Like they raised a crap ton of money that more than paid for itself for what we hired them to do. But they don't mention that. And Heather knows this. She knows how this works. Now, the other two, maybe they don't know. And so Heather sharing this nonsense from these two is what drives me crazy because Heather knows better. And so that to me, and to your point, Dylan, and this is what we're getting at. So the ISA launched a fundraiser where 100% of the proceeds, other than maybe the credit card processing fee, they're going to take their cut. Everything else is going to the victims of these families.
Sure.
Okay? We're still trying to figure out how we're going to split it. We're in direct communication with a lot of these victims and the heroes that have been a part of this. And so I'm sitting there going, okay, we're going to raise money. Let's raise money because some people aren't comfortable giving to GoFundMe or Give Send Go or whatever. Let's raise some money. And then all of a sudden, I see Lauren and Brandy sharing their same old nonsense. Greg's a scam. And then Representative Heather Scott is like, yes, you need to know the salaries of these people. And so she's creating doubt in gun owners' minds about the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. And I'm an open book. Fine. If you think that I'm a criminal, turn me into the AG, have him investigate me. Good luck with that. Okay. Good luck with that because there's nothing there. We've always been as frugal as possible, and we have always done everything by the IRS books the best that we possibly can. And so that was just so disheartening to see. I thought we were over this, Dylan. I really did. I was like, okay, the election's over. Okay. A bunch of the G8 lost. So it was really hardcore conservatives lost. And I thought, okay, we're finally done with this infighting. And for Heather Scott, Representative Heather Scott, in the middle of one of the worst tragedies in Idaho history, when we are raising money to help these families, for her to all of a sudden be like, what she implied was that I was a scammer, like you said in the beginning.
She did.
Greg's going to steal the money.
Yep.
What? It's literally a crime for me to say I'm raising money for these families and then just keeping it for myself or just keeping it for the ISA. It's literally a crime. So if you think that that's the case, then I guess turn me into the AG and have him investigate. And what you're going to find is all this money, as we've done with charity event after charity event that we have done, we donate all the money minus if we have to cover the cost of, the processing fees or something like that. But we do everything we can to get as much of that money. I don't take an admin cut. There's no admin fee, which I legally could charge, right, for my time. I'm not doing that. So it's so disheartening because we should be focused on helping these people. And instead, Representative Heather Scott, Brandy, Lauren, Dave Riley, and all these other yahoos from up north are just creating more division.
So for me, Greg, this is a symptom that you've experienced. It's like you've had the rotavirus since you got into politics. It's like a symptom of what's happened since you got started. And it's what I'm trying to share is like, you've been in this for 15 plus years. once again, I want to remind everybody that your reason for constitutional carries of actual Second Amendment scenario that you should enjoy it every day is thanks to the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance and some other people that have good, loyal interests like Christy Zitto. But ultimately, there's also SB 1298 for protecting. It's one thing to be able to carry. It's another thing to be able to protect. This is about outcomes, but for me, the symptoms that you're experiencing is what this divide.
Yeah.
You worked with Heather Scott. Who is Lauren Walker? What is this person? This is a person that self-proclaims. I've heard this. Okay, let me set some ground rules here. This is Greg Pruett's and Dylan Stalker's opinion. Okay.
Sure.
We're sharing upon our own experiences, and we're not trying to attack any one person, but it's some questions. Like, what is this? A person, Lauren Walker, self-proclaims to be in control of Idaho politics. This is a person that, the best that I can tell, has lived here for, I don't know, less than 10 years, definitely. And what is your experience? Did you work for Trump admin? Did you work on the cabinet? Like, who is this person that is deeply involved for some reason? And it seems like we have an establishment. I'm so tired of the word establishment. It's like unprecedented, but there is one. We have grassroots, right? We have a rift that happens at some point. The Idaho Freedom Foundation. We have Maria Nate, we have Ron Nate, we have Dustin Hurst, we have Heather Lauer, we have what appears to be on a more grassroots side versus an establishment scenario of what? I'm naive. I came into this without asking to be. I interviewed some sheriffs and then I was attacked out of the blue by the most unprofessional scenario ever. So Greg, I mean, break it down for me. Help me with this.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, I guess.
So much.
So look, when I
what happened with Heather? Go back to Heather. That's what just happened. Heather in the, sorry to cut you off. Heather has conservative gravitas, if you will. She's done some stuff, right? Yeah. There's some good things going on. So I've gotten to know you. I'm looking at all the deeper. I'm wondering who the friends are, if there is such a thing. I don't see anything wrong with what you're doing. So what happened?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, this is my opinion on politics. I think there's a divide in part because, when I first started, there was like no conservatives in the Capitol. There wasn't anybody, right? And then Heather Scott and Ron Nate came along, and it was like, finally, we have two people who are going to fight against the establishment. And that was kind of the beginning of this modern day movement. And you throw the IFF in there with their rating system, and all of a sudden people started going, okay, these lawmakers, like none of them are conservative. What happened here? And so it created this movement, and you throw the ISA in there fighting for gun rights. And we did things differently than, say, the NRA, because we were much more confrontational. And I don't mean like we go in and, yell and scream and do all that kind of stuff. We just stood up for what we believed in. That was it. That's what the confrontation meant was, no, you say you're pro-gun, but like you don't support constitutional carry. So you're lying. Because you can't possibly be opposed to constitutional carry and then claim to be pro-Second Amendment. So we started calling these people out for it. So you take all of that stuff together and it creates this incredible conservative movement, which, again, started in the Capitol with Ron and Heather, and then it kind of grew from there. Now, interestingly, and I've said this before, that I actually noticed a long time ago. Okay, so Heather and Ron have both voted great, did incredible things, but I think Heather never really liked the confrontational style of what I did. And in fact, Senator Zitto will tell you that when she first came into office, whenever that was, golly, that was a long time ago too, 8-9 years ago, whenever it was, Heather Scott went to her, and said, don't work with Greg. Greg's, he's too aggressive, blah, 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 whatever she said. It was something along those lines. And so she told that to Senator Zitto, and Senator Zitto will tell you that publicly, that that's what she was told. And I've had a few other people that have said Heather Scott said the same thing. So it's not even necessary for me. I knew about all this stuff happening a long time ago, that there was definitely a difference in style and how to do politics, right?
Sure.
That I think Ron was supportive of and Christy loves. She loves the confrontational style, and Heather never did, I think. And so, um, at least behind the scenes, that's what she would tell people, although she would still email me and call me and be like, "Hey, this thing's going on," because she knows I would go after and fight. All right. I would be the dog to go fight and take on the establishment. Well, what happened, I think, is a couple years ago, there was a huge divide, and this is where the divide really started to happen. I think some people in the House in particular had started to align themselves with Speaker Moyle. Okay. And
Well,
there was
let me interject really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Definitely describe this divide, but also describe where somehow this social media X things come into play, because I think part of it also is you got these people out of nowhere. Then all of a sudden Elon takes over and Twitter is now conservative free. And it's
Yeah.
like a wonder ground for conservatives to say whatever they want.
Sure.
Anyways, I think that's part of the problem. I don't mean to interrupt, but yeah, go right for that moment.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And that's why, I'm trying to shorten this story so that we're having a conversation and it's not me blabbering for.
No, it's all good. I want to hear it. That's for some reason that's in there.
Yeah, but I mean, fast forwarding to what you're talking about, and that's essentially where we're getting, right? A few years ago, the game changed. Elon takes over X, Twitter, right? And he renames it X. Conservatives are excited. We finally have a platform, and I'd still argue it's not super great for a variety of reasons, because my reach with the ISA on there is like almost nothing unless something crazy happens, like, what happened with Twin Falls. And so, I would argue that Twitter's, it's really not that great. But anyway, so this divide happens where I think a lot of people align themselves with Speaker Moyle, and they felt like they wanted to go a different direction in politics. Because to me, the establishment still runs the show, from the House to the Senate to the governor, right? And lieutenant governor. Everything is run by the establishment still. So conservatives still haven't taken over. And for whatever reason, a lot of them aligned with Speaker Moyle, where, Maria Nate was like, nope, that he's not. Look, the guy's a career politician. He's been in there for a really, really long time.
35 years? Am I wrong? Like, that's insane.
Yeah, it's been a long time, right? And so there was like, why are we aligning ourselves with this guy when Rachel Hazlip, who's by all means seems like a much more conservative person, why shouldn't we be backing her, right? And that's really where I think that's where the divide exploded. I think it was already kind of building up before then, but that's when it really became public. And then you had all a bunch of YAL stuff that happened. And for everybody watching, there's some serious inside baseball stuff here and a lot to unpack, but we're trying to get to the main point of, then Twitter comes along. And that's where, for whatever reason, some of these people like Lauren and Brandy, built up these little followings on X and, just started spouting their mouths off. And then they end up finding, interestingly, Brandy in particular, I'm sorry, not Brandy, Lauren in particular, she's been on the Freedom Bros podcast and she liked Maria Nate. She loved Dustin Hurst. She's like the Mitt Romney of Idaho. She's been for all of us before she's now against us. I believe she was also a member of the ISA. Well, so all of a sudden it flipped, and now she's anti everything that she was in favor of. And she's really just aligned herself with Heather Scott and a handful of others at the Capitol who are fighting against me and fighting against Dustin and Maria and Ron and all these other people. And so all the things that they were in favor of, now magically they're just against, because they have access to the Speaker of the House. They have access to Heather. And so it was very convenient to just pick a side and run with it.
So, okay, I'm going to make an assumption here. Okay.
Yeah.
One of to me, the dumbest political moves that you can make is to give yourself a symbol within your group, right? Because once you give yourself a symbol, then everybody associated to the symbol, how to attack them.
Yeah.
Is the establishment the donut?
Oh, yeah, more inside baseball there for sure.
But
I
that's
think
not inside baseball. That is not inside baseball, Greg. If you follow anything
well,
social media, if you care about politics,
yeah.
if you don't eat a donut with certain individuals, then you're not a part of the club. It even boiled down to a scenario where an Idaho Republican Party event, which is supposed to be for all conservatives, which
Right.
it's not. There was almost a fisticuff scenario about accusing somebody of not eating a donut. Like, is the donut the establishment?
Uh, yeah, I mean, and I like donuts, but they really have taken that, and they were trying to mock Dustin and all this stuff. But look, there's political theater and there's some fun games that
Sure,
you can have in politics. I get it. Maybe it was funny a little bit here and there, but it went way beyond that to the point where, yeah, they were trying to make sure that you had a picture eating a donut with so and so, and they thought that they were like rubbing that in our faces. And I just said, guys, do you not understand? Look, if you do a joke here and there, people get it. They understand. You're wasting how much time and energy trying to troll someone about donuts. I mean, it just became so stupid. And it still is. Like, I'm just going, "Oh my gosh," and you'd have these lawmakers like, "Oh, look, there's a box of donuts at the Capitol today. Look at me eating a donut." And I'm like, "Are we that unserious in this freaking place that we're just nonstop making dumb donut jokes?" And so it's for the new establishment. It is their symbol, I guess. I just and again, it doesn't mean I'm sure you like donuts. I like donuts, and they're really
no, like
good too, but
it's not about liking donuts. For me, it's about professionalism. My whole thing about
correct.
Idaho politics is about professionalism.
Yeah.
Disagree, whatever. It's about professionalism. I'll say it again. It's about professionalism. Um, it's it's less than high school at this point, right? Like to me, and I'm newbie, by the way. I called you, Greg, about 6 months ago. I'd have no idea. There's no friends in this business. There's no friends in this. And I'm like, what is going on? I can't believe this. And I'm looking at the pieces, the communication pieces, and we have an establishment. And we'll just say for you listeners that might be picking up new here, or the people that are following Lauren Walker or Brandy Parody, those are names. Have you ever looked into the other side of the people that you're following? Because the intelligence level of the communication that's transpiring amongst these people is less than primate, if you ask me. And then
Yeah.
and then they do things like, again, Lauren was a member of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance to get ahead, it seems like. And then she takes um a mailing from you for Honor Idaho and posts a picture of it, blocking out her own address and doxes herself,
Attempted to
right?
block out her address, right, yeah.
Attempted to block out her access. So smart enough to know that we don't put our own addresses, but not smart enough to see that every camera in the world, and then blames other people for their doxing. I'm
Yeah,
simply pointing out, I'm looking at the level of intelligence of the tools of the operatives that are used, and it seems that the establishment has lost its way. We have an ethical standard to potentially maintain, and we're ethically bankrupt for maintaining power. I would like to see if Heather's listening to this, because she's so into herself. I would assume that she couldn't even stand to put this little nothing podcast down, because it's, I don't know, is it nothing? Are you listening? Show me something real that Greg has done against Idaho and the movement.
yeah.
Heather, you're a conservative. We're talking to people with Lauren Walker and Brandy Parody. Show me these people's, show me a business that you've started and made successful. Show me an education. Show me something that you've done outside of being popular on X. I don't know, Greg.
Yeah. It's always easier to sit there and sling arrows when you've created nothing, you've built nothing, you've not put your neck out on the line, you've not done anything. I mean, it's easy to be on X and just spouting nonsense all day. Look, props to Heather. She's a lawmaker. She runs and she, all that stuff. But for the other two, it's like, what have you accomplished that, you can talk about in life? And look, here's the thing. I'm not perfect. Okay. I'm not
Sure.
saying that there aren't things in politics that I wish I would have done differently or whatever. We all make mistakes. We all learn. That's fine. At the end of the day, I try to do everything I can, and I always have, to ensure that gun owners' money is well spent and that we're frugal, that that we do everything we can to make sure as much of that doesn't go to overhead as possible. Um, and interestingly, Heather, so for instance, Heather talked about in the tweet that we're mentioning, and maybe you'll throw that up on the screen at some point. But she's like, look at the salaries of these activists and blah blah blah. Okay, so full disclosure, because I've done this, I don't know how many times I've said my salary. Okay, from 2012 to 2016, I did not get paid. Okay, I was working in the military at the time. I'm a disabled veteran. I was still in the military. I was working on Gowan Field, and so I was, and I was doing, I say, a ton, like a ton of work, and so I just completely swamped. Didn't take a salary. 2016, we passed constitutional carry. Guess what? My salary, $250 a month. Okay.
I could say some crosswords for that one. $250 a month. That's
rolling in the
terrible.
dough. Okay.
Yeah.
So then the military forces me out and forces me into medical retirement because my back and legs are just jacked up. I'm in like excruciating pain all the time. Right. And so they forced me out. And at that point, it was like, well, crap, and I did some other stuff with my degree. And then, my wife was like, maybe you just need to really focus on the ISA because you won't stop working. And so I was like, okay, well, so my salary went up to like $2,000 a month for a couple years. And it was not until the last 2, maybe 3 years that between my wife and my wife helps me and she's in tremendous pain and she's got all this medical stuff. Between the two of us, we make $5,000 a month. Okay. So it's our full time thing trying to fight for gun owners. $60,000 a year. And I can promise you that is not nearly enough to deal with the accusations and the bull crap from Heather Scott and the rest of them. I mean, it's nothing. If to be honest with you, if you ask anyone what someone running a statewide nonprofit makes, typically the president, it's usually 6 figures, and I don't need that. Like, I'm fine. My wife and I are fine with what we make. Like, it's fine. But that's what she's saying. So she's saying that my salary is too high, I guess, for my cut is like 36,000 a year. Okay. So I guess I make too much money. Sorry, guys. I don't know what to tell you there.
But that's so, Greg, like, that's ridiculous, by the way, for somebody who I believe works full time. This is about outcomes. Okay.
Yeah.
This is about outcomes. Tell me, Heather Scott, where were you on SB 1298? Did you help try to get that forward? How many people that have went for self-protection that had their lives persecuted for years because you're guilty and proven innocent in the usage of a gun? Yeah. Heather Scott, where have you been for that? The greatest impact to Idaho on gun rights, which, by the way, that's why this conversation is important, Greg. Are we conservatives? Are you a conservative? Are you fighting for the conservative? Or are you fighting for personal interest? That's the question I would ask Heather, and that's the problem. The problem is we have toxic relationships. The Idaho Republican Party is toxic. And here's the definition of a toxic relationship. You love them, they do wonderful things, but they balance out what you love them for with all the worst things ever. And so you can't, if they were just all bad, you would get rid of them, they would be gone. But there's just enough goodness. Is that you, Heather? Like, what is going on here? I'm a Second Amendment person. If this is about the Second Amendment, we're failing our Idahoans, our conservative Idahoan. But I think it goes beyond that. Like, how do we define this divide? How do we define it? I don't know.
Well, and part of the problem, we haven't mentioned this, and I know you and I have talked about it before, I think on your show and, when it was the other one, but It's about power. It's about access, man. I mean, human nature is drawn to power and control and all this kind of stuff. And some people are willing to sacrifice their principles in order to gain more power. And I've just
Sure.
never been that way. Like, sure, you could say, well, Greg, you run a gun rights group, that's power. And sure, I'm in a position where I've built an organization for almost a decade and a half of, but again, it's not even me. It's not about me. If it was just me by myself, like nobody would care. But what happens is I can now mobilize thousands and thousands of gun owners, and they know that. They know
They
that. Dylan,
do know
guess
that.
what? If I was such a scam artist and ISA was such a horrible, awful organization, guess who filled out our candidate survey this year and didn't even need to? Heather Scott.
Okay.
And
So
she
why did
also
she feel
she
why
also
did you feel
co-sponsored.
compelled, right? Why did
What's
she
that?
feel like she needed to?
Yeah, why fill it out? Like, if I was in her position and I thought, "Oh, this local group is a scam," I wouldn't freaking fill it out. And many lawmakers don't because they feel that way.
Yeah.
Most of them are like hard, rhinos and stuff, but, uh, say she also co-sponsored SB 1298. I don't think she really helped push it, but I could be wrong there. I'm almost 99% sure that she did. That she signed on and agree, which is great. Like, fine, let's fight for it. But again, if why that's Greg's bill that he's pushing with Christie, I'm not going to co-sponsor that because that organization, blah blah blah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, they know at the end of the day, they know that they can't be seen as the one not filling out the candidate survey if they're part of the broader conservative movement. Um, so I just and again, Dylan, it's so frustrating because I'm done. Like, I'm done with it all. I just want to fight for gun owners. Going back on one of your points you just made, you talked about SB 1298 and how important it is to make sure that Idahoans know if I pull a gun and I shoot to defend myself or defend others, that I am protected, that the law is on my side. Guess what? We just read a story, and now we got to confirm this, okay? But the individual posted it online. So, and they posted pictures. So from this Twin Falls tragedy, there was he looks like a young man. I think he's fairly young, who was walking his dog near that intersection. And you know where the Teslas are that got shot. Okay, there's a
Sure.
dumpster there. Well, he ends up by the dumpster and he has a handgun. He has a 22. And you know what he said? He said, he said two things that were very important. I didn't pull out my gun and shoot because I wasn't quite sure who was who, and I didn't want to get charged with murder. Okay, so no, and then he said, I felt horrible. I feel like I let my community down. And everybody's like, dude, you're if you don't know who to shoot, then by all means, please don't, But here's the thing though. In his mind, he didn't want to get charged with murder for engaging in a firefight. That's not good because he could have killed the bad guy and this whole thing would have been over. But he didn't want to because he wasn't sure. So let's play out the scenario. What if he accidentally thought that Jordan was the bad guy, Jordan Salinas, the hero who had gotten this firefight, and he shot him because he thought he was the bad guy. Horrible, right?
Sure.
Absolute mental punishment for the rest of your life. But you shouldn't go to jail for that because you were trying to do the right thing. You thought there was a mass shooting. You saw somebody shooting a gun. You took them out. That's the risk Jordan takes, right? He knows that he might accidentally get shot by the cops or by another good guy. That's the responsibility we have as gun owners. But SB 1298, that's what we needed it for, so that people like this other kid who had a gun and wanted to engage but didn't want to get charged with murder. Holy crap! That shouldn't be on your mind. Your mind should be on, I'm going in. Okay, I'm going to risk my life. I'm going to go try and save lives. And if this horrible accident happens, I shouldn't get freaking prosecuted for it. That's what I want to focus on, Dylan.
Well, I mean,
This nonsense.
you've
Anyway,
definitely got step one done, which is constitutional carry, period. I mean,
yeah.
that's step one. Step two is, okay, well, something happened. And again, I'm driving to a greater point here. Not a greater point. Sorry. That ability to protect oneself is the greatest point. And, you've said something in all of this. And are you guilt by association? Is it Senator Christie Zitto who, the best I can tell, in a very, I don't know, I don't, travel with her every day. She's stood pretty hard on her principles, and that gets difficult in the old legislative sessions. And now you've got the leader of the Idaho Republican Party coming out just before the primary saying, I don't want to see the Gang of Eight turn into the Gang of 10. And
Right.
the Gang of Eight is, the best I can tell, actual real conservatives. So it's just a bunch of smoke and mirror show? Is this Cecil Andrus playbook from decades ago, which was a Democrat, by the way, if people don't realize that.
Yeah.
You got Cecil Andrus leading into Butch Otter. Butch Otter worked for Cecil Andrus, leading in Brad Little. These are names, but man, I'm just asking the naive questions.
Yeah. Well, the main issue here, in my opinion, this is not exclusive to Idaho, is that the Republican Party, from top to bottom, again, nationally, and in every state that I've ever talked to people about who deal with the Republican Party, once they have power, okay, once they are in power, they do nothing. They try to do as little as possible. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to make people angry. And so, and what that ends up creating is people who compromise, give up their values and all this stuff because they want to maintain that power. That's what they're there for. Okay. Or at least maybe not when they initially get in or into those positions, but that's what they're inclined to do, is to do absolutely nothing. Where the Democrats, can you imagine the first year one of the Democrats taking over Idaho? It would be a bloodbath, an absolute bloodbath. That's what they did in Virginia. That's what they
Sure.
did in Colorado. They didn't wait. They didn't sit around. They said, oh, we got power. We're going to put our foot on your throats and we're going to choke you out. Okay. Republicans who have all the power here, the Democrats have zero power here. If we didn't let them have power, and we just do as little as possible. Every single year, it's a fight to get the most meaningless gun bill through the Capitol in a state that's 80% controlled by Republicans. And that to me is the broader issue of the party, of the people who get elected, is they just want to maintain their power. And if they do the good things, the good hard things, well, now you're going to rock the boat and you're going to piss off all the government bureaucrats. And so they don't do it.
I mean, so what you just highlighted is why, for me, this is an important conversation, because of all of the things conservative that we could or could not be fighting for, gun rights ought to be one of them, or the number one, where there should be no arguments. We should be able to propose something, which I think you said it better. It's like, we shouldn't be passing laws to protect our rights. We should just have our rights. We shouldn't have to have those laws.
Yeah.
But I think you, as an example, 1298 should have been an easy win. Should have been like a flow through. It should have been a 95% sign on, but it's not. So are we a conservative Idaho? I'm so sick of the word rhino. But when we're drawing immigration bills, but it's like, in order to fight the enemy, who is the enemy? Well, the enemy is a non-conservative, a non-gun rights person. How do we define these people? Who are they? The only thing I can see are the people who eat the donuts and the people that don't.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I think, I mean, the term rhino is used a lot. And I would never say like somebody like Heather Scott's not a rhino.
Yeah.
You're talking about Jim Guthrie and
Kelly
Rod
Anton.
Furness and people like that are legitimate rhinos. They're not conservatives. They center right, maybe, if you're lucky. But the other, again, so if people like Heather and some of these others are not rhinos, I don't even know that I would throw Speaker Moyle. I don't think Speaker Moyle fits the definition of a rhino.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's rhinos, there's Democrats, there's rhinos, and there's the hardcore conservatives who just go out and fight and all that. And then you have this group in the middle that's not rhinos and they're not the hardcore conservatives. At this point, they want power. Okay. They want to maintain their power and their access to power. And that is it. And that is That is not exclusive. Here's the thing you got to be careful of, Dylan. And I've told people this. It can happen to anyone.
Sure.
It can happen to, and make no mistake, the rhinos also want power and all that kind of stuff too, right? It can happen to anyone. Very few people, I've seen very few people go into that Capitol building. And this is, again, not exclusive to Idaho. This is just human nature that go into that Capitol building and that desire for power to climb the ladder, the fame, the fortune, the access to money, the prestige, all that crap. It will eat at you. The longer you're in there, the more likely you are to become susceptible to the desire to get more of that. And that's a spiritual battle, in my opinion, that takes place. And so I try to always prep people for that. And very few people have come out of there, like Christy Zitto, who she just doesn't care.
Oh, she takes a beating, and you either let it beat you or you just do what you're going to do and be for the people. And I believe she is one of the true real few that are there for the actual purpose.
Yeah. And if you lose, you lose. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, she basically, people had to beg her to run again. Like, she wants to run, but she also doesn't want to just be some long-term career politician. She hates it. But she loves fighting for her people. That we need more people like that. Where, like, I don't want to run again. Like, I'm tired, but I want to fight for my people, but I'm too tired to keep doing this crap. I don't, I'm never going to be a committee chair. I'm never going to be this because of, being the hammer in there, just smashing things all the time.
I mean, they wouldn't even let Christy be a door opener because she might say something to somebody on the way in, because she says the truth, the best I could tell.
Can you see her doing like being a tour guide in the Capitol? She's like, oh yeah, here's where all the rats are.
Yeah, totally. Obviously, I'm partial to Christy. I think you are too, but it's not out of fandom. It's just out of basic principle, voting decisions and sticking to principles. You said something in there, and this is something I've been holding on to, and we'll see if you want to answer it, because you talk about spiritual. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I have this thing where I don't think you can genuinely be successful in politics. I said the word successful. You can be in politics, but you can't be successful in politics if you are a true person of God. I'm a person of God. I'm not scared to say that, and I don't believe that you are, and there's others that are. But we have a religion that's deeply associated to Idaho politics. Let me just clarify. I went to school in Rexburg, Idaho. I graduated as a cougar. I don't practice the Mormon religion. I believe in our Lord, but I'm very well associated to Mormon religion. There's an old Mormon joke where if you want to go out with a Mormon friend and drink beer, well, you better take two of them, because if you don't take two, the other one's going to drink all your beer. There's this thing that's frustrating me about these, I got to say, the Mormon religion coming out and saying all these standards and all these things. And then meanwhile, you find out, without calling out any names, we'll just say that the two individuals, Lauren and Brandy, that are utilized in some of the most disgusting levels of communication and tactics ever, are utilized by those in politics that practice the Mormon religion. I don't see how you can do that and choose the right. Do you have any comment?
Yeah. So before I get to the LDS tie into Idaho politics, I do want to go back real quick and say that you and I both like Christy, and she's a great friend of mine and a great family friend. She will be the first to tell you, and I've told her a million times, I will, I always you're always my friend. But if politically you start turning, I will not support you. Okay.
Sure.
And she knows that. And she's asked me, like, hey, if you ever see me even remotely going down a path of becoming part of this problem, you better call me out. And I said, I will. Yeah, 100% will call you out for it. And her and I have had disagreements on things over the years. It's, usually minute stuff or whatever. But that's the difference between me and you and a lot of other people is, once they hook their wagon to some particular horse, they are unwilling to criticize and hold them accountable. And once you've done that, once you said, oh, well, Representative or Senator so-and-so, they're my good friend. Guess what? Most of the people that get in there turned. And so if you're not willing to hold them accountable, you're part of the problem. Okay. So now let's jump to the LDS issue with this. Yeah, I mean, look, in the LDS faith, everybody is taught to be kind and loving and respectful and honest and all that stuff. Okay, that is very much built into LDS theology and how people should react. And it doesn't necessarily go that way. I mean, a large chunk of the legislature is LDS comparative to most other religions in
Sure.
Idaho. It's a large chunk, and the LDS faith has an issue, and I'm LDS. So okay, so for anybody watching, like I mean,
I'll say on my dog tags, I had LDS on my dog tags too.
there you
Okay,
go.
but
So I have my own disagreements with the church and that kind of stuff, but in particular the freaking anti-gun policy, but we won't get into that right now.
yeah,
But here's the problem that we have in the LDS faith. Number one, and Christians in general, and to some extent, people are taught to avoid confrontation. And I don't mean like fighting confrontation. It's just so many people are extremely uncomfortable with fighting and arguing and standing up and all that kind of stuff. But interestingly, in politics, it seems to go out the door fairly quick. So it's a little bit strange to watch people who are. I mean, there's so many horror stories, especially for how Christie's been treated, and how they treated her. LDS people who should know better. But again, I go back to, I think that the power and all that stuff, it overrides a lot of other things, right? Your inner conscious, the Holy Spirit telling you not to do certain things. And that happens to everybody, right? I mean, I'm not perfect. There's things I've said that I'm like, I probably should have said that, but I was pissed. But when you let it become, when you if completely shut it out, and now you're letting that power and access and everything else, if you're shutting out the spirit telling you to not do things that you shouldn't do and you just don't care anymore, then we've certainly crossed a kind of a unique threshold where if the spirit's not guiding you, something else is, right? And it's not
sure.
good. Yeah.
Well, so man, that's me asking that question as a subtle little. I guess I don't know. I don't want to say jab. I don't like the word confrontation. There's a clear
Yeah.
word. There's a clear descriptive difference between confrontation and communication. Hey, Greg, I don't like what you're doing. I like you, but I just don't like what you're doing. I'm communicating. I'm not coming to try to get in a gunfight with you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a often misunderstood practice. It's so now, okay, you're going to hear everybody. So what do we do about it? What do we do about it? What do we do about it?
Yeah.
We have a situation where we have three parts of Idaho. We have northern Idaho, southwest Idaho, and eastern Idaho. We have population centers within each that are growing more liberal by the day. And because of this divide that we talk about, the power holders versus the conservative grassroots individual and a Republican Party in the middle that I can't tell what it's doing. It's not raising money. It's not getting people out to vote. It's destroying itself. It should represent the whole. All of this is us communicating a problem that is going to be Colorado, you name the other purple state, New Mexico, Arizona. We're on the path in a speedy way. Greg, do you have any comments about, I don't know, is there a unity breakfast? Could there possibly be one? What do we do?
Well, dude, here's the crazy thing. So, with Honor Idaho, as you know, we've been trying to we're fighting the abortion initiative.
That's number one.
One of the most amazing things I've seen, at least in the last month, is, I've been on some calls and I've been speaking with people who we probably are not like you would consider them establishment people. Okay.
Okay.
And I've been on these phone calls and all these groups from Idaho Freedom Foundation to Honor Idaho to Idaho Family Policy Alliance. I mean, all of these groups have come together and said, look, we got to set aside all of this nonsense. Everything's got to be dropped because babies' lives are now at risk and we all got to work together. And that's happening in real time. I can promise you, because again, I've been on phone calls with people that probably don't necessarily care to talk to me. And then that feeling may be mutual on a normal given day. We just don't have anything to say to each other. But for this thing, for this one thing, we are fighting together. We are all in. And so I was kind of hopeful. Hey, maybe we're past it. Maybe we are past the infighting. Maybe we're past tearing each other down. Yes, we're going to have policy differences. Yes, we're going to, at election time, we're going to run a hard right candidate. They're going to run a center right candidate, whatever. Then we're going to get back to the normal fight. And I was so hopeful until a couple nights ago. And then I thought, oh my gosh. I was so devastated at this Twin Falls thing. We wanted to figure out a way to help. And I mean, you can ask anybody that's been talking to me privately. It's so heartbreaking, this whole thing. I'm trying to do what I can to give the heroes a voice and show the world, here's how incredible these people are, with doing my Gun News Now articles and showing people the amazing stories. And at the same time, we got to help these victims. We got to help the people who just got screwed over. What can we do? What can we do to balance both of those? Well, I'm going to do a fundraiser. I'm going to do, let's just all this money. So the decals are being donated by Five Fish Press in Twin Falls. My wife and I are personally going to cover the shipping costs, which is not going to be a ton. Okay. But we're going to make sure as much as possible goes to these victims. And then all of a sudden, here comes this tweet from Representative Heather Scott. And I was sad at first, and then I was pissed because I'm like, how dare you? How dare you judge my character and what we're trying to do to help these people? Like, how dare you do that in the middle, like the worst time possible, to try and create doubt and create more division? And if that doesn't show you who these people really are, then I can't help you. I can't. What is the solution? The solution is, honestly, ultimately, you've got to learn to ignore these people, support the organizations that are fighting for you, that are really fighting for you. Put your money behind, or your money, resources, time, whatever it is, donate it to the groups who are out fighting for you. And, my goal right now, we're talking about this today, and hopefully this becomes just a video. Anybody can watch it anytime.
Sure.
I'm done. I'm done with it all, dude. I have too much work to do. I want to help save babies' lives. I want to help save other lives by making sure that our gun laws are the best possible. I'm just done with this crap. I don't have time for, and honestly, if it had just been Lauren and Brandy doing their typical, oh, Greg's a scammer, blah, blah, blah.
Their noise. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I wouldn't have cared. But when a sitting lawmaker does it, who should know better, who does know better, then I don't. My invitation is still open. Lauren, Brandy, Heather Scott, if you want to have a live debate and discussion about my past, the money we spend at the ISA, you can record it. We can do it live. You can record it on your end. I am happy to do it. I will stand up before God and anybody else, the AG and anybody else, and I will account for everything. Not a problem in my book. Happy to do it. So far, I did that directly to Brandy, and she's like, "No, you'll just delete the video." And I'm like, "Nope, then record it. Okay, come debate me. Let's do it. I'm happy to do it." So anyway.
Well, gosh dang it, Greg. I'm bothered. I think for people's context, like I've never been on I was not on social media for 10 years up to last year. I got involved in Idaho to talk about the positive for my radio show, and I get attacked by these people out of the blue with zero context, and it made me want to look a little bit closer. And now you're like, well, welcome to the club. This is just the way it is. But this is the deal.
Yeah.
This is the deal. The club that you were a member of, and I'm sadly become a member of just out of happenstance, is going to be what turns Idaho into another purple state.
Yeah.
And if what you just said, the solution is that we can come together in the name of God's creation, and we can put all of our crap beside each other and look for one example that we can work together on for what we all claim to be God-fearing Christians, to work what is right, then let's get together in the room and put everything else aside and work together and stop destroying anybody that you're fearful of, because that's what's happening, Greg, is they're scared of your influence. If you are getting attacked by these people, it's because they're scared of you. In fact, it's perhaps one of the greatest compliments. And for me, one of the things you just said is donate to the organizations or the people direct themselves. I'm sorry to say this, but I'm all about don't donate to the Republican Party because it's doing nothing from what I can tell. Find the candidate, find the person. And if you're curious, find the organization, reach out to them. And if they respond to you, then you might have something. If they don't respond to you and they're not worth your time, then maybe they're not worth your time. So
yeah, if you reach out to an organization, just be patient. Potentially, there's emails I don't get to for like weeks because again, I do it all on my own, and so it does take a little bit of time. But to your point, if they can reach out and communicate with you, fantastic. Especially if they have a staff. Like if they have a staff, there should be no excuse for them. But to your point, dude, like long before Dorothy Moon, I've never just give to candidates that you like.
Sure.
Because the GOP, in my opinion, it's just never been a very good vehicle for great change. I'm not saying they don't do some good. I would never claim that.
Yeah.
But overall, you're much better off finding the people that you support and making sure the money goes to them. When you give it to the GOP, they can give it to anybody, right? So that money can be spent however they want to spend it. And if you're looking for good candidates, then just give to the candidates. If you're looking for good groups, give to the good groups. And here's what I can promise you, at least in closing from my end.
Sure.
I can tell you this without any doubt, and you can ask Senator Zito and probably a handful of other lawmakers. If the ISA goes away, okay, if Brandy and Lauren and Heather Scott destroy the ISA, there will be gun control. There will. And it's not necessarily going to be like an AR ban or stuff like that. There's little minute things that we have stopped over and over and over again over the years, things that we have gotten in the way of that they didn't want us to get in the way of, and we did to protect gun owners. That stuff will fly through. It will fly through. The only reason it doesn't is because the second anything even remotely resembling gun control hits, the ISA is there to stop it. And I'll give you one example real quick.
Love it.
It was Senator Kevin Cook. He's out of Idaho Falls. He was doing some bill on cell phones. Okay, it had to deal with cell phones. It had nothing to do directly with guns. And what the legislature was trying to do, and this was Facebook that was pushing these bills, what he was trying to do was say that when a person goes in to get a cell phone, that the porn filter has to be already turned on by the manufacturer. Okay. So the manufacturer has to turn the filter on. And if you don't turn the filter on, then we're going to sue the manufacturer because you're not helping stop kids from seeing pornography. Okay. That was the bill. Now, I'm not pro porn at all. I don't want my kids looking at porn. I think it's awful and tears apart families, yada, yada, yada. Okay. But here's the thing. Some lobbyists came to me and said, hey, take a look at this. How do you think this would impact gun owners? Well, buried in this bill, it says that the government, they wanted the AG to be able to sue the manufacturers for not blocking pornography. And I thought, oh my gosh. I'm like, guys, do you not see this? We want to, tell me if this sounds familiar, Dylan. We want to sue the manufacturer for something that they themselves had no control over. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, that's if they're not figuring it out, say what it is, dude.
I'm like, guys, no. What are you doing? You are laying the groundwork for, Glock didn't do this. We should be able to sue them. You are basically saying the state of Idaho is okay suing. Look, I have no love lost for Verizon and T-Mobile and all these stupid companies, but we're going to blame them for not blocking pornography. Well, what's the prohibit someone from suing the state saying, well, we don't have a law that says you have to lock your guns up. And this kid died. My kid died because Glock didn't do X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
What are we doing? And the left right now literally just launched a lawsuit tracker for their 112 lawsuits they have launched against gun shops like yours and gun manufacturers. Anyway, all that's to say, we took a bill that we were like, dude, no, no, no. Yeah, I'm not worried about Labrador suing gun manufacturers, right? He's not going to do that. But who's to say 10 years from now, when Idaho has shifted a little bit more purple and that we have all these court cases suing the manufacturers, that the courts don't go, well, the state clearly believes that we can sue people for something that they didn't do. Anyway, that's the type of stuff the ISA and the NRA is not going to do that. We asked them, they wouldn't get involved, but the ISA does. All that little tiny stuff is what we do all the time. And I can promise you that stuff will pass 100% if the ISA is not in there to block it.
Well, and I don't even know if they're smart enough to realize that that's the problem. That's what you're there for.
Yeah.
Once again, the reason why, to me, this conversation is important is because I think as conservative Idahoans, we believe in our Second Amendment right without any clarification. It's our ability to carry and defend ourselves without getting destroyed. And so to have a supposed conservative leadership coming out and attacking you for what you're doing is a great concern to me, because it seems like we're going against the mission. Maybe, once again, I would like y'all to look up Honor Idaho. Look up Honor Idaho. That is also Greg Pruett, that I think is doing wonderful things in the name of why are we here today? Why were you here today? You were born not typically, but a man and a woman, and you were born, and thank God for that opportunity. And maybe as conservatives, we can come together in the name of that. So I'll be following your fight, Greg. Before we wrap, any final comments?
No, look, at the end of the day, we're all going to have disagreements. We all have our own strategies, and we all think that we're right, right? There's a certain level of, how do you say, arrogance in politics. I mean, it is what it is. I try to be, I'm just the most humble guy you ever meet. No, I'm kidding. No, we can have disagreements about strategy and tactics and professionalism, all that kind of stuff. I get that. What frustrates me is that Heather Scott implied that I was overpaid and that I was basically scamming people.
She implied that you were scamming, and that's a huge problem. That is a huge problem.
Yeah, that's absolutely disgusting and uncalled for, and she knows that that's not the case. So that just, to me, is so heartbreaking to see her saying that kind of nonsense, and that's different, right? It's not, oh, Greg's too aggressive and all that kind of stuff. Fine, whatever, I don't care. But when you're saying crap like that, now you're tearing down the organization. Now you're potentially leading us down a path where, we're going to be harmed by your defamation, and you're going to cause people to not trust us. And when that happens, the result is gun control. Okay, so is that your alternative motive? Like, you want gun control? I don't think Heather Scott wants gun control, but I don't know what else to think at this point. When you're tearing down the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance like you are, and making those insinuations that we're scamming people and stuff, it's just disgusting. So I would say focus on your mission. If you love the ISA and the work we do, support us, help us. We need you in the fight at the end of the day.
Well, that fight, so let me remind people as we close, this is Crossroads, Idaho, August 5th, 2026. Dylan Stalker and Greg Pruett. Look at the outcomes. Look at the voting records. Look at the voting records and the outcomes. And the outcomes is in Idaho, you have constitutional carry thanks to the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. And that might be old. It's not new enough, but there's been many other things. And as of recently, SB 1298, there should have been an entire 100% unification behind that one. And that just tells me that we have some not so conservative leadership here, Greg. I support you. Before we close up here, once again, take a look at Idaho Second Amendment Alliance and Honor Idaho. Let's fight some abortion bills. We're sponsored by Old Arms of Idaho. They are your ambassadors to America's heritage. They are your collectible firearms, Western and military specialists. Thank you all for listening today, folks.